Good morning, America. This is Jonathan Arias, landlord, attorney, multifamily attorney with the Onyx Group, and Buy It Rented Profit. Today, I want to talk about the latest development. This is happening in Orange County, or has happened already. And there is a video, a story. This comes from Channel 2 Wesh, and it's a big one. Orange County commissioners vote to put rent control ordinance on the November ballot. Now, let me explain. So, the county commissioners voted 4-3 to say, okay, we're going to put this on the November ballot and let the constituents decide whether they want rent control in our county or not. So let's watch and see.
Rent across Central Florida is high, and now Orange County residents have been given the green light to vote on a rent stabilization ordinance come November.
That's right. Tenants are struggling to pay the rent, which has jumped an average of 30% in just the past year. WESH's Gail Pascal Brown is live tonight outside of Orange County Commissioner's Chambers after sitting in on this vote. And Gail, it was pretty close.
Yeah, indeed it was, Summer. It was a 4-3 vote in favor of putting this on the November ballot. This is by no means a cure-all. There are 230,000 rental housing units throughout Orange County, and this ordinance could possibly help people living in more than 100,000 multifamily dwellings.
And so the motion passes 4-3. That's it.
It took several hours of public comments, but Orange County commissioners voted to put a rent stabilization ordinance to a public vote. The ordinance would forbid some landlords from increasing their tenants' monthly rent by a higher percentage than the annual increase of the Consumer Price Index for a period of 1 year. Orange County Mayor Jerry Demings was among leaders voting no. He says he doesn't think the rent stabilization will accomplish what most think it will. Dollars is what's going to help.
I think what really has worked for our community has been the fact that we have provided that rental assistance, what has kept people in their homes, and that's what will keep people in their homes.
The proposal.
All right, so let's talk about the mayor and him voting no. So the opinion of the ones who voted yes is that at least this is what they voted for, is that the Consumer Price Index indicates, okay, rent has grown to here, or wages have grown to here, and in this particular geographical location, we're not going to increase the rent by that percentage. What he's saying is that programs like Our Florida that gave dollars directly to landlords, that's really what's going to keep people in their homes. I think I agree with him, because I've seen Our Florida work where there have been evictions and then landlords get payment from Our Florida and the like, and they're like, okay, well, I'll keep this person, I'll keep them in the property as long as I get my money. I don't care who it comes from. But this rent control is another option, and that's what Orange County may do. We'll see in November.
Proposal is controversial, with some saying it will hurt the economy and that increasing housing supply is the better solution.
Rent stabilization and rent.
So I also agree with that. Increasing the housing supply is going to be the better solution, because I learned in intro to economics, ECO 2023, back at FAMU, go FAMU, strike, and strike again, the alma mater, that supply and demand are curves. And when you decrease supply, you're going to increase price. And when you increase, hold on, don't do me like that. Dr. Beer Hansel, he probably don't remember me, but he taught me well. All right, you increase supply, you decrease price. You decrease supply, you increase price. So also, let's talk about, they're not going to mention it, but demand is also increasing. So that's increasing price as well.
Rent control, in my studying of real estate over the last 20 years, has never worked anywhere.
But renters are crying out, struggling with.
So let's go the other way. When he says it hasn't worked anywhere, worked in what sense? I don't know. He didn't go into it. I haven't spoken with him, but I'm curious. Worked for whom and in what way? Because I know in New York they have rent control, and a lot of people have benefited from it. but what does he mean? We'd have to dig into it a little bit more. Let me go back to talking about the supply. Easier said than done. I mean, you got so many factors. I mean, there are economic factors. There's environmental factors. There are just issues with the geography and the culture of the city. I mean, you could just build a bunch of homes in the middle of nowhere, and will that help? Or do people want to be in certain parts of the city? So that, it's easy to say, oh, just increase supply, but trust me, there are tons of developers that are benefiting from increasing supply, but sometimes it's easier said than done.
Steep increases in their rent.
Rent is too damn high. Landlords say here today it's the supply, not the price gouging and massive rent increases.
While others have been forced into homelessness.
I was on my friend's couch for about 2 months until I finally found a place. And so today, I feel restored. I feel like there is hope.
The rent stabilization ordinance goes on the ballot November 8th. And if the people say yes, it could take effect by mid-November.
I'm happy. Yes, it's a win for the people, and that's what's important.
Now, to also help address the need, the mayor pointed out this that's happening today. Today, the Orange County Board of Commissioners approved a new 5-year consolidated plan focusing on affordable housing, homelessness, and sustainability. I'm Gail Pascal Brown, reporting live in Orange County for West.
Let me say something. That mayor, from what I've read, has been very proactive in terms of trying to eradicate homelessness and helping people who are having tough times. So even though he voted no on this, people may look at him as, oh, he's the enemy here, but he just has a different approach on how this should be done. And he feels like it would be, resources will be better spent in another way. But he's definitely putting in work, and this is a testament to that. He put forth a plan, and shouts out to him, a Black man doing his thing for the community. That's admirable.
WESH 2 News.
Okay, so quickly, let me go to. Let's go back here real quick, and we mentioned a few terms, and I gotta touch on them. So, consumer price index. This is going to be linked to the consumer price index. What is consumer price index? So, it's the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics comes up with or develops the consumer price index, and here it is. The consumer price index is a measure of the average change over time in the prices paid by urban consumers for a market basket of consumer goods and services. Indexes are available for the US and various geographic areas. So here is Orlando, Orange County, right? So in this case, you have Orlando and the surrounding areas. They talk about employment rates, what the labor force is looking like, what the salary statistics are looking like. So the rent is going to be linked to these numbers in a way that I have yet to understand. So I tried looking at this and I was like, oh, let me explain this, but I don't get it. I just know it's going to be something that's going to be tied to this. Something's going to be tied to something. All right. The last thing I want to show you is the actual ordinance. So this is the proposed ordinance. Everything above this is just definitions and stuff like that. This is where the real meat and potatoes is. So section 25.384. No landlord shall demand, charge, or accept from a tenant a rent increase for a residential rental unit more than once in a 12-month period. So that is where it starts. But the real one is B. No landlord shall demand, charge, or accept from a tenant a rent increase that is in excess of the consumer price index of the existing rent for any residential rental unit, except as otherwise allowed under section 25.388 of this ordinance. So very basic. They tell you exactly what it is. There's nothing crazy about it that's super hard to understand. But they do say, oh, there's some exceptions. So let's go there. This stuff is basic. I'll let you read that if you want to. So apparently there's going to be a, at the department's request, landlord shall submit a registration statement. So you may have to register with, I guess, a department that they're going to create. That is not what I want to get into right now, but let's get into the fact that there will be an exception. So 25388A, the board shall adopt a resolution with rules establishing a process by which landlords can request exceptions to limitations on rent increases based on opportunity to receive a fair and reasonable return on investment. Rationale for deviations from the limitation on rent increases must consider the following factors: increase or decreases in property taxes, unavoidable increases or any decreases in maintenance and operating expenses, the cost of planned or of completed capital improvements to rental units, where such capital improvements are necessary to bring the property into compliance or maintenance or maintain compliance with applicable building, housing, health codes, and where such capital improvement costs are properly amortized over the life of the improvement. Increases or decreases in the number of tenants occupying the rental unit, living space, furniture, furnishings, equipment, or other housing services provided, or occupancy rules. So this is interesting because if you say, hey man, a bunch of tenants have left my property, I need an exception, they might give it to you. So I don't know what the teeth on this thing really look like, and I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if it even passes. Substantial deterioration of the rental unit, other than as a result of normal wear and tear, inability of the landlord to provide adequate housing services, or to comply substantially with applicable state and local laws, building, housing, or health codes, or the rental agreement, and the pattern of recent rent increases or decreases. Let me see. This is also some exceptions that I wanted to touch on, but I think this is, I wonder what these exceptions are going to look like. Let's read B. It is the intent of this ordinance that exceptions to the limitations on rent increases be made only when the landlord demonstrates that such adjustments are necessary to provide the landlord with a fair and reasonable return on investment. The county will not grant an exception to limitations on rent increases for any residential rental unit where the landlord has failed to bring the rental unit into compliance with applicable state and local laws, building, housing, and health codes. That makes sense. All right. So other exceptions. These are exempt rental units used or offered for residential purposes as a seasonal or tourist unit pursuant to section 125.0103. So we're talking hotels, motels, and probably Airbnbs are gonna have an exception here. Units used or offered for residential purposes as a second housing unit pursuant to yada, 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 which include accessory dwelling units. So that's interesting because I don't, a second housing unit for the tenant, I don't know. I'll have to look into that one. Rental units located in a luxury apartment building pursuant to blank Florida statutes, which for the purposes of the section shall mean one wherein on January 1st, 1977, the aggregate rent due on a monthly basis from all dwelling units as stated in the lease or rent list existing on that date divided by the number of dwelling units exceeds 250. So that's interesting. Dwelling units located in a single family home, townhome, condominium, or mobile home, and mobile home lot rents as preempted by Chapter 723 Florida statutes. So I don't understand this. And if this means what I think it means, then this is only going to be for multifamily buildings because, single family homes, townhomes, condominiums, or mobile homes, they wouldn't receive this protection. That's very interesting. Rental units that a governmental agency or authority owns, operates, or otherwise manages. Dwelling units located in a cooperative apartment occupied by a holder of a proprietary lease. Dwelling units located in a disability facility, hospital, nursing home, assisted care community, or healthcare facility licensed under. Rental units for which the landlord receives federal, state, or local housing subsidies, including but not limited to rental units that are currently under rent control by virtue of local, state, federal housing subsidy, and new rental units that have received a certificate of occupancy on or after the effective date of this ordinance. So let me just read this again and make sure I'm clear. This rent stabilization ordinance shall not apply to any residential rental units expressly exempt pursuant to any provision of state or federal law, and such units shall be exempt from the provisions of this ordinance. The following units are also specifically exempt from this ordinance. Yeah. So I read it correctly. So quite a few. This isn't going to be as far sweeping as a lot of people might believe. It seems to be only multifamily buildings, and even if it's one that's owned, that's a condo. So if a landlord, rents out their condo unit, then it's not covered. They don't have to abide by rent control. Mobile homes don't. This is interesting. So the penalties, let's get into that real quick, and then we'll be done for today. This ordinance may be enforced by code enforcement officers, including county and municipal code enforcement officers, any law enforcement agency having jurisdiction of the area with yada yada. Violations of this ordinance may be prosecuted in the same manner as misdemeanors and result in a fine not to exceed $500 or by imprisonment in the county jail for a term not exceeding 60 days. Huh. All right, so they're giving it's going to be a criminal violation. All right, let me see. Notwithstanding any other provisions of this ordinance, the county may impose civil fines to its code enforcement board or special magistrate, or issue civil citations through its code enforcement citation program for violations of this ordinance. Such fines or citations shall be enforced in amounts as provided for and authorized by. Fines imposed by the code enforcement board or special magistrate may be for amounts not to exceed $1,000 per day. Golly, per day for a first violation, and $5,000 per day, sheesh, for a repeat violation. Holy moly. However, if the code enforcement board or special magistrate finds a violation to be irreparable or reversible in nature, it may impose a fine not to exceed $15,000 per violation. Let's talk about this. Any tenant aggrieved by a landlord's noncompliance, this is good, with this ordinance may seek relief in a court of competent jurisdiction, provided that such action is filed within 2 years of the alleged violation. Wow. Okay. In a private civil action filed under this ordinance, the court may issue an order prohibiting the unlawful practice and providing affirmative relief from the effects of the practice, including equitable relief, temporary restraining order, actual and punitive damages, reasonable attorney's fees. Okay, attorney's fees as well. Interest, costs, or other relief upon a finding that a violation of this ordinance has occurred or is about to occur. Any lease provision which waives or purports to waive any right, benefit, or entitlement created in this ordinance shall be deemed void and of no lawful force or effect. Okay, so there are some teeth here. It has some teeth, but I think the exceptions, their exemptions rather, are going to be very, very impactful. It's just, from what I read, it's just multifamily buildings, apartment buildings, nobody else. So you rent somebody single family, doesn't apply. Very interesting. And there are also these exemptions over here. Yes. Yeah, these exceptions here. So we shall see. November, I think she said November 8th, when this will go on the ballot. We'll see what the good people of Orange County end up doing. For any guidance or any questions you have regarding this or any other landlord-tenant matters, multifamily housing matters, please reach out to the onyxgrouplegal.com. I'm Jonathan Arias. I would love to speak with you. I'm Jonathan Arias from the Onyx Group and Buy It, Rent It, Profit. Thank you very much for your time and your attention. God bless you. Peace.